So Stephen Ambrose, we all know for Band of Brothers. However, it's come out that Stephen Ambrose plagiarized in almost every one of his works. Join me today on Walk with History from the World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana. Museum. We're going to talk about why is the World War II Museum in New Orleans. We're going to talk a little bit about Stephen Ambrose and the historian who more or less brought the museum here, kind of gave World War II a new resurgence in history and love of history, but the controversy around Stephen Ambrose today. So here in the lobby of the World War II Museum, it's set out like a train station, like you're kissing your loved one goodbye before you leave for World War II. And so you can see the train schedule up behind us, and you're gonna get a name. You're gonna see if you're gonna be sent to the Pacific side or the European side, and you're gonna follow your soldier around through the battles on their way to victory. So it's a very neat premise they've set up here in the lobby to feel like you're part of the whole World War II experience. So why is the World War II Museum in New Orleans? It's because of the Higgins boat. And the Higgins boat is that flat water boat that they used for the invasion of Normandy. And this area had one of the biggest factories that supported building, manufacturing, and testing the Higgins boats. And right here, we talk about Andrew Higgins. He's the one who constructed those boats here in New Orleans. It's one of the first places where African Americans and whites worked together. They were paid the same amount. It was fully integrated. He employed 25,000 workers, women and African Americans, 7 plants to meet the booming demand. They turned out over 12,000 Higgins boats, including the ones that were used in the 1944 Normandy invasion. But that is why this World War II Museum is here in New Orleans, Louisiana. So Stephen Ambrose, we all know for Band of Brothers, we all know for Undaunted Courage, what he did for history and popularizing World War II history and popularizing history in general, making it accessible and fun and adventurous, is unimmeasurable. However, since his passing, it's come out that Stephen Ambrose plagiarized in almost every one of his works, that he took other people's writing, did not give them credit, and used them in every one of his works. So much so that in his biographies of Eisenhower, so this goes into Operation Overlord, June 6, 1944. This was with Eisenhower planned the whole thing. And D-Day, it just means the day, D-Day. And they named the beaches Omaha, Utah, Juneau, Sword, and Gold. Omaha and Utah are named for 2 men that worked in Eisenhower's office. He asked, "Where are you from?" And they said Omaha and Utah, so those are the beaches. The other 3 beaches are Juneau, Sword, and Gold because they were named after fish. And Juneau was supposed to be jellyfish. And Churchill said, "I can't write someone's mother and tell them they died on Jellyfish Beach." So they changed it to Juneau Beach. So Gold, Juneau, and Sword are all the British beaches, and they were named after fish. His biographies of Eisenhower, entire situations were made up, entire conversations were made up. And he claims to have this really deep connection and relationship with Eisenhower. And even though it's been found that there was something there, it was not to the extent that Ambrose had played it out to be. So this is a little section about the atomic bomb and the cities that were built to support the creation of the bomb. And one of them is Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And in Oak Ridge, Tennessee is where they would mine the uranium and the plutonium that was needed to create the power to split the atom. And then they would test it in Los Alamitos, New Mexico, and then Hartford, Washington is where they would produce more of the plutonium. So it's got uranium, Tennessee, plutonium, Washington, testing and design, New Mexico. So this is Tibbetts' flight record and watch. He is the pilot of the Enola Gay. And remember, he names the aircraft after his mother. And it's in the museum in Washington, D.C. Here's Tibbetts' jacket from the Enola Gay, right? This is the pilot of the Enola Gay, and this is his World War II jacket. How cool is that? They have some pretty neat artifacts here that you can walk around and see. And now, because so much of Ambrose's work now has come under the microscope of being not his original work, and as a historian, what does that mean, right? Ambrose defended himself at one time when this was brought up as, I'm a storyteller. I tell stories. I don't know where I hear the stories from. I tell them. But that's not really what a historian does. Yeah, we tell stories, but we tell factual stories. We tell primary source stories. And if we use somebody else's historiography, someone else writing about history, we cite it, we source it. We don't pretend like it's ours. Stephen Ambrose did this so consistently in his writing that there are cases where I said I didn't even question some things that he had written because it's Stephen Ambrose. You're supposed to be able to trust a historian. There are historians today that believe that Ambrose's work is really unusable from a historian standpoint because so much of it is untrustworthy now. Height of the Japanese Empire. Look at how much they had, like New Guinea, the West Indies, Thailand, Burma, the Philippines, Japan, Korea, up into China. So neat, they're creating the Pacific and the islands and what it was like fighting on these hot tropical islands for the Marines and the Navy on the Pacific side. They've done a great job of creating what all this looked like. So island hopping, that was MacArthur's campaign for getting back the area that was taken by the Japanese. He was going to island hop and take these places back one at a time. And you see the Tarawa right here with the Gilbert Islands. So the Japanese had taken this much, and so MacArthur starts island hopping to start to get this area back. So that's one of the first ships in the island hopping campaign. This is the ship that Scott and I met on, the USS Tarawa. So how do you treat Stephen Ambrose? He's one of those controversial figures now. What he did for history is immeasurable. What he did for Band of Brothers, what he did for Meriwether Lewis and Clark. I would say it's a starting point. Look at his information and use it as a starting point. And then from there you can look it up and find out if it's true. But that is another reason why this museum is here in New Orleans. Stephen Ambrose gave the original allotment for the museum, and Stephen Ambrose taught here at the University of New Orleans and was one of the reasons why it was brought here. But who Stephen Ambrose is today is still undecided. So remember, five-star generals: Eisenhower, Bradley, Arnold, Marshall, and MacArthur. This is our brick here at the World War II Museum for Walk with History. There's Scott, Benny, Jennifer Mitchell, that's my maiden name, and the USS Tarawa, the ship that we both served on, and the ship that we met. When we talk about Stephen Ambrose and we talk about the Higgins factory and why this museum is here, this museum would not be here without Ambrose. So even if his work has been now under controversy, now not seen as accurate, and he still brought this museum here. He still brought a lot of history to Americans today that would not have been privy to it beforehand. So Stephen Ambrose, whether or not he is a historian, he definitely is a person who was an educator. On to my next Walk with History.